back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, June 11th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, let's get into what we are going to talk about today. So, we're going to start off the show, talk about Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, getting a new contract extension. And I'll talk about that, what that means for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. And then, when we go to the second part of the show, I'll continue my schedule breakdown. So yesterday we did the Rams schedule. Today we will be doing the Seahawks schedule. So I'll go through their schedule and give you my early win-loss prediction for them. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about some comments made by running back Damien Harris, who recently retired. He kind of criticized Bill Belichick and kind of blamed him for Mac Jones' decline. So I wanted to get into that and give my thoughts. And then the fourth part of the show, we will talk about the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, his recent comments on the offense, how it's pretty much a completely different offense. So we'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, I'll talk about the Raiders' backfield. With Zamir White and Alexander Mattison, they're taking over for Josh Jacobs, of course, who left in free to go sign with the Packers in free agency. So I just wanted to talk about that as well. So a variety of different topics today. So hopefully you guys will stick around for the full show. So let's get into the first topic, talking about Mike Tomlin getting a new contract extension. And this will actually take him through, the extension lasts through the 2027 season. And right now, with Bill Belichick not getting a job, not really that, but leaving New England, he is the longest tenured active coach in the NFL. He has never finished with a losing record in 17 seasons. He has 7 AFC North titles, 11 playoff bids, and 2 Super Bowl appearances. And he won the one back against the Cardinals in 2008. And 2023 was an interesting year because the Steelers, it was a roller coaster. I think they were 7-4 at one point, and then Kenny Pickett gets hurt. Mitchell Trubisky comes in, did not play well, and it looked like the Steelers were going to end up missing the playoffs because they lost to the Patriots and the Cardinals, and those two teams finished with bad records. You know, the Patriots had the 3rd pick, and the Cardinals had the 4th pick in the draft. So, yeah, they lost those back-to-back games. 2 teams that finished in last place. And, you know, there was a lot of conversations about, well, could this be it for Mike Tomlin? And then he made the quarterback change. He puts in Mason Rudolph. They win that game against the Bengals. Then they win in Seattle. And then they win on the road against the Ravens. Now the Ravens had their backups in. They ended up making the playoffs at 10-7. And this is with all the issues that they had at quarterback. And they were still able to make it. Now, they definitely got some help, of course. I mean, you had guys like Joe Burrow ended up getting hurt. So the Bengals missed the playoffs. I think if Burrow doesn't get hurt, the Bengals get in. The Steelers probably don't. But give the Steelers credit. They were able to make it. Now, this is... So I don't want to, rain on this parade, but I'm going to. Because I've talked about the Steelers a lot. And I've brought up how they haven't won a playoff game since the 2016-2017 season, when they won that game in Arrowhead, and Chris Boswell kicked 6 field goals. It's been a long time. And for a lot of Steelers fans, I think it's definitely... You got people in one camp that are like, this is great, we still got Tomlin, and then you got people in the other camp saying, we got to go in a different direction because we're doing the same thing over and over again. Yes, Mike Tomlin has never finished with a losing season. But since they won their last playoff game, I mean, yeah, they don't really have anything to show for it. I mean, they have made the playoffs. Like I said, they made it this past season. But they did lose to the Bills, who are a better team. Then Ben Roethlisberger's last season. They went 9-8 the previous year, but missed the playoffs. But then Ben Roethlisberger... His last season, they went up against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs were the much better team. They made it as the last wild card team. They made it as the 7th seed. 2020, they were down 28-0 at the end of the first quarter against the Browns, a team that they own. And yeah, it's been disappointing. And they're looking to flip the script and make the playoffs finally, but it's been a long time. And I wanted to bring, a couple things. Something that's incredible is the fact that the Steelers have had only 3 head coaches in the last 55 years. Chuck Noll from 1969 to 1991, then Bill Cowher from 92 to 2006, and then Mike Tomlin took over from 2007 to the present. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's kind of like the Packers with their 3 starting quarterbacks since, the 90s. With Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now you got Jordan Love. I mean, this is a lot longer. 55 years. I mean, you only had 3 head coaches. And then the other thing, too, is the Steelers have had 3 coaches in the last 55 years. This is credit to CBS's Instagram account. So the Steelers have had 3 head coaches in the last 55 years. The Panthers have had 5 head coaches in the last 2 years. I mean, that's incredible. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up is one of my friends, they sent a tweet, and these are I think it's 27 head coaches have won a playoff game since Mike Tomlin last won a playoff game. You had guys like Doug Marrone, Dan Quinn, Sean Payton, Doug Peterson, Bill Belichick, Mike Zimmer, Chuck Pagano, Anthony Lynn. Actually, hold on. I gotta go back to the tweet if I can scroll up because part of it got cut off because I took a screenshot of it. Yeah, so 27 head coaches have won a playoff game more recently than Mike Tomlin. Yeah, so Chuck Pagano, Jason Garrett, Anthony Lynn, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, Bill O'Brien, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McDermott, Kevin Stefanski, Bruce Arians, Mike McCarthy, Brian Dable, Nick Sirianni, Todd Bowles, Dan Campbell, Zach Taylor. Yeah, I mean, Mike Tomlin's got to win a playoff game. He has to. Now, I was watching the Rich Eisen show, and they do their Overreaction Monday, and they did bring up the Mike Tomlin extension, and they were talking about, will Mike Tomlin make it to the end of that extension? And they brought up Bill Belichick and how, yeah, I mean, Belichick was there forever, and then finally it got stale towards the end, and he was out. I mean, I think, because the Steelers don't typically get rid of people in season, and I feel like they're with Mike Tomlin, like, yes, they finally let go of Matt Canada. But Mike Tomlin, I think they're going to give him his respect, and he's going to at least get through this next extension. I don't think they're just going to let him go unless the Steelers just are awful during this time. But I think Tomlin will make it through the extension. But this is a big year. Got to win a playoff game. I think the Steelers have a good team. It's just they play in a tough division. And I think if you're ranking the quarterbacks, although they did change their quarterback room, I'd still probably rank them last in the division. And Deshaun Watson, I'd rank Lamar Jackson and Burrow at the top. Then you got Deshaun Watson, who has struggled since he got traded to the Browns. And you got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I'd probably still rank Deshaun Watson ahead of them. But they're neck and neck. But they have a very good defense. And, they address the offensive line. They have a good running game. They do have good weapons. But, they've had this good defense for a while. It's just they have not been able to win a playoff game. So we got to see. It's going to come down to the quarterback play. How is Russell Wilson going to play, or Justin Fields? I mean, Russell Wilson's going to at least start the year. So, but they play in a tough conference. So, we'll see what happens. But again, it's very divided. I feel like you have people on one side, like I said, they like this, and then you have people on another side saying they don't like this. So, but yeah, I think it's time. Like, it's incredible that Mike Tomlin has not finished with a losing season, but we got to see more results. We got to see some playoff wins here because it's been a long time, and I know I've brought that up a lot. And even if, let's say he doesn't make it through this extension and he ends up being let go, another team's going to pick him up immediately. Just saying. But let me know what you guys think about the Mike Tomlin extension. And what are your expectations for the Steelers going into 2024? So, we're going to take our first break of the show. And when we come back, we'll talk about the Seahawks. We'll break down their schedule. I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. And that is what we will do when we come back from our first break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the Seahawks. We'll break down their schedule for 2024. And the Seahawks, they missed out on the playoffs last year. I believe they finished 9-8 last season. And there's no more Pete Carroll, which is kind of a shocker. But, yeah, he's no longer there. You got Mike McDonald from the Ravens coming over. And he was one of the top coaching candidates, during this past coaching carousel cycle, whatever you want to call it. And the Seahawks picked him up. He's a defensive-minded head coach coming over from the Ravens. And, we'll see how it goes. And right now it seems like Geno Smith is the guy that's going to be the starter. I know I've talked up Sam Howell, but maybe I'm kind of overrating him a little bit. I don't know. I feel like Sam Howell could do well with the Seahawks in a better system and, with better playmakers around him as well. But that's just me. But yeah, the Seahawks, they finished 9-8 last season, and, they play in a tough division because you got the 49ers, of course, that have beat up on them the last, few years. And, also the Rams, being back to not exactly how they were in 2021, but still, they were a pretty good team last year. And then you got the Cardinals as well. So, yeah, it's a tough division, and let's kind of go through each of these games here. So, start off the season, they're home against the Broncos, and it's kind of funny because, well, now Russell Wilson's not there anymore. And that was Russell Wilson's very first game as a Bronco a couple years ago now it's a couple years ago, when they had the Week 1 matchup on Monday night, and the Seahawks won that game. And that was when Geno Smith, had that famous post-game interview where he was like, they wrote me off, but I didn't write back. So, no Russell Wilson. We'll see who ends up being the starting quarterback for the Broncos. Whether it's Jared Stidham, whether it's Bo Nix, Zach Wilson. It's going to be interesting. But I think regardless of who starts, I think the Seahawks get off on the right foot, and I think they win this game here. So I'm going to say they start off 1-0. Then they go to the Patriots. And, I don't have the Patriots winning a ton of games. We'll get to them at some point. Actually, the Cardinals will be tomorrow. And then I think we move on to the AFC. I think I did every division in the NFC. So, yeah, we'll be moving on to the AFC this week. So, we'll get to the Patriots soon. But, again, you got two first-time head coaches going at it, Gerard Mayo, Mike McDonald, like I said. I think the Seahawks are the better team here. So I actually will give them the win as well. So the Seahawks start off 2-0. Look at that. Then we move on to the Dolphins coming into Seattle. Hostile environment, but Dolphins got a high-powered offense. And I think that the Dolphins will win this game. I'll pick them. Again, this is very early, but I'm going to say the Dolphins win this game. So the Seahawks are going to drop to 2-1. Then they take on the Lions in Week 4. And the last couple of years, when these two teams have played against each other, it's been high scoring. To go back to 2022 for a second, because I want to pull up the score from that. And, the Seahawks have actually won both games. So they won 48-45. That was back in 2022. And then last year, I think it was, what was the final score? Was it 37-31? It was. There you go. See, I remembered. 37-31, that was an overtime game. And the Seahawks won that. I think in this spot, I think the Lions win this game, though. I think third time's a charm. They beat Seattle finally. And now Seattle is 2-2. Then you got the Giants coming in. They got back-to-back home games against the Giants and the 49ers. I think the Seahawks win against the Giants in Week 5. Not very high on the Giants this year. I know I had them winning 7 games. I think this was one of the games, though, I had them losing. They lost in Seattle a couple of years ago when they made the playoffs. But, yeah, I just think hostile environment. I think the Seahawks are the better team here in this spot. So I'll say the Seahawks win that. 49ers come in. Listen, the 49ers, they've beaten up on the Seahawks the last couple of years. And even in the playoffs. Because, Geno Smith made it in at 9-8. They were the 7th seed. 49ers were the 2. 49ers won that game. Although it was competitive in the first half. But then the 49ers, they took over that game. So, Yeah, I think the 49ers win. So that drops them to where are we at now? So now we're 3. So now the Seahawks are 3-3 at this point. Then they take on the Falcons. Interesting game here. I think the Falcons' offense is going to be good this year with Kirk Cousins now there. The Falcons are going to be a better team with Kirk Cousins there. I think this game could be very competitive, but I will take the Falcons to win this game. So now the Seahawks drop to 3-4. Now the next 2 games are interesting because you got the Bills coming in. It's going to be interesting to see Josh Allen playing against the 12th man, basically in that environment. But I think he'll be fine. But yeah, this is an interesting game because the Bills. We got to see how this offense is. With all the new wide receivers that they have and the changes that they've made. Well, like I said, offensively and defensively, because they did lose some guys. I think the Bills win. I'll take the Bills in this spot. So the Seahawks then drop another game. So now it's interesting because, I don't want to pick them to lose 3 games in a row. Well, they already lost 3 games in a row the way I'm going. And then they got the Rams. And then they got the 49ers right after that. So I forget what I did with the Rams yesterday, if I had them sweeping the season series. I think I did. I guess we'll keep that. So the Seahawks lose again, and then they lose to the 49ers. So I have them losing to the 49ers, the Falcons, the Bills, the Rams, and then the 49ers again. But then, you know what? I'm going to have them get back on track, and they're going to beat the Cardinals. And then they take on the Jets. It depends. Look, if the Jets are healthy, I think they should win. Be interesting, though. Geno Smith taking on the Jets. Yeah, I'm going to say the Jets win. Seahawks lose another one. Then they take on the Cardinals in Arizona. That one's a toss-up, that being in Arizona. I'm going to say the Cardinals actually win that game. I'll take the Cardinals. And you know what? I'm actually going to say they upset the Packers in Week 15. And then they win against the Vikings. So back-to-back wins for them. Then they take on the Bears. And it's going to be interesting to see where the Bears are at this point. I think I've said that, whenever I've done these and the team's playing the Bears late in the season. I'm going to say the Bears win, and then I had them losing against the Rams. So, let's see. I had them winning against the Broncos. I had them winning against the Patriots, against the Giants, against the Cardinals, the Packers. Oh, I only got them at 5 wins? I don't think they're going to... I think they're going to get more wins than that. Yeah, I think 5 is too low for the Seahawks. Yeah, again, this is very early. Actually, wait, hold on. So I had Broncos, Giants, Patriots, Cardinals. Oh, wait, I had them winning against the Vikings, too. Okay, so I had them all right, so 6-11. Yeah, 6-7 wins. I think maybe they get 7. It is a tough schedule. You got the Bills, the Rams twice, the 49ers twice, the Lions, the Dolphins. You got the Bears later in the season, the Packers, and I actually had them upsetting the Packers. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards 7 wins. I think they get another win somewhere else. Let's say 7. 7-10. Again, but it's a first-time head coach, so, it's not like, it's Pete Carroll still there. Mike McDonald might exceed expectations, and, I think people think he's going to be a good coach, but maybe he exceeds expectations his first year, and they, finish with a better record than I have him. I'm going to say I think 7-10. I think they get another win somewhere else. Maybe they upset the 49ers, or maybe they split. I could see them splitting with the Rams more so than the 49ers. So, yeah, I think 7-10. But we'll see. I think they'll lose close games. I think they'll put up points against the Dolphins. They'll put up points against the Falcons. Maybe they beat the Bills. I had them losing against the Bills. I think that's a winnable game, though. The Bears is a winnable game. We'll see. But yeah, that's my schedule breakdown for the Seahawks. So I had them at like I said, I only had like 5 or 6 wins. I think they'll get 7. I think they should get 7. So let me know what you guys think. How many games do you think the Seahawks will win in 2024? So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about some comments made by Damien Harris criticizing Bill Belichick for Mac Jones' decline. So we'll get into that when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about some comments made by, former NFL running back now, Damien Harris, who recently retired. His comments on Mac Jones and kind of criticizing Bill Belichick as to why Mac Jones declined. So I wanted to get into that. So this is what Damien Harris had to say recently. So he said, if I can find his quotes. All right, so he said, what happened to Mac Jones in New England was not because of Mac Jones. He says, what happened in New England to Mac Jones was because of the fact you took away an offensive coordinator who coached him to be a Pro Bowler and almost coached us to winning our division with a rookie quarterback. He said, we drafted Mac. We had a great year, went on to win 7 straight. At that time, we were kind of looking at ourselves like we might have a Super Bowl run here. Again, that's, I like the positivity, but yeah, the Patriots were not going to the Super Bowl that year. But anyways, he said, then you take Matt Patricia, who's coached defense his entire life, Joe Judge, who's been a special teams coach, and then you just throw them in there and say, hey, coach this kid up. He's a first-round pick. But as long as you teach him what I say, everything's going to be fine. And he said that Belichick is stuck in his ways, which, I think a lot of people would say that. And Nick Urillo is in the chat. He says, Bill certainly did Mac no favors letting Joe Judge and Matt Patricia run the offense. I agree 100%. Now he says, now Mac Jones is in Jacksonville. The breadth of Mac Jones in New England, it came and went. It shouldn't have gone the way that it went. The only reason that it did was because Bill Belichick being stuck in his ways was very much so. As long as I am here, as long as I am, along with Robert Kraft, the top dog at this organization, no matter who, no matter where, what position, where they coach, whatever, we will have success. But yeah, he goes on about that. But yeah, I do agree with what Damien Harris had to say. Now, it's not like they got rid of Josh McDaniels. He left to go get a better job. Well, yeah, to get a head coaching job. It's a step up from being a coordinator. Now, it went horribly in Vegas I mean, look at what happened. He didn't want Derek Carr, so they get rid of him. They bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, and Garoppolo did not play well. And then they got rid of him. And then Antonio Pierce, gets the job. And now Josh McDaniels is nowhere. So, yeah, it's not like Bill Belichick was like, all right, we're getting rid of you. No, he left. Now, I can't defend what he did after that because, yeah, you're bringing in Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, two guys that, yes, they got head coaching experience. Patricia left to go coach, the Lions, and that didn't go well. And Joe Judge went and coached for the Giants, and that didn't go well. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to bring these guys back, and I'm going to show you that they can run an offense. And they could not. Because Mac Jones did regress. And then they tried to bring in Bill O'Brien, and that didn't really work out either. And Mac Jones ended up getting benched a couple times. And you had Bailey Zappi playing. And yeah, now he's with Jacksonville. Now he's a backup quarterback. But yeah, if you go back to 2021, again, it's not like, Mac Jones had this incredible year. Yeah, he was a Pro Bowler. But, again, it's also because, the guys that usually are elected to the Pro Bowl don't go to the Pro Bowl. We never really see... yes, we do see some of the top guys go to the Pro Bowl, but, a couple of years ago, Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowl quarterback. So how, you can't really... But, again, it's Damien Harris defending one of his guys, so I understand that. So, Mac Jones back in 2021. 3,800 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a 92.5 rating. That's good. But then, yeah, the regression, it just went south after that. He just missed the 3,000-yard mark, 2,997 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 84.8 rating, and then the rating goes down even more. And the passing yards, the touchdowns, they go down. He had 10 touchdowns last year, 2,120 yards passing, 12 interceptions, and a 77 rating. And the other thing, too, is, and I've said this a bunch of times as well, look at the talent that the Patriots brought in. They never really had a true number one wide receiver. You had Kendrick Bourne, who, he turned out to be their best receiver, I guess. You brought in Hunter Henry and Juju Smith-Schuster they brought in last year. They never really surrounded him with talent, elite level talent. And, this goes back to even when Tom Brady was still there. 2018. They first of all, they traded Brandon Cooks after 1 year. I don't know why they did that, but they let him go. I think they traded him to the Rams. Yeah, they traded him to the Rams. 2019, you drafted N'Keal Harry, and D.K. Metcalf was still there. So, Brady had to throw to N'Keal Harry, and, they went out and they got Mohamed Sanu, who was, kind of washed up at that point. And you still had Julian Edelman, but Julian Edelman wasn't the same player. Gronk retired, so then you had Benjamin Watson playing tight end. They had him. They had, I think, Matt Lacoste, and it was not a good tight end room for the Patriots that year. But then, Brady went to Tampa, and, we all know what happened after that. But this is about Mac Jones. Yeah, they just never really surrounded Mac Jones with a lot of talent. I think they also brought in Nelson Aguilar, who's been a better player since, that rookie season with the Eagles, and Eagles fans were just done with him. But, hey, Nelson Aguilar is a Super Bowl champion. Remember that. All right? I try to forget because, being a Giant fan. But, yeah, they never really have surrounded Mac Jones. They never surrounded him with talent. And that combined with the constant changes with coordinators, yeah, you could kind of blame Belichick in that respect. Now, how do I feel about Mac Jones? I don't really think he's that good. Even when he won that Pro Bowl. I thought he was decent, but, I was not ranting and raving like some of these, these fans of him, the Patriot fans, because there were some Patriot fans that thought, oh, this is going to be the next Brady, and even some people on TV thought that, he could be the next great quarterback for the Patriots. I just really didn't see it. Now, maybe he gets another shot elsewhere. I mean, there's not going to be a quarterback battle in Jacksonville. I mean, this is Trevor Lawrence's team. But, maybe he gets another chance somewhere else and he can prove himself. But, yeah, I just never really thought, like, even during his Pro Bowl season, I mean, where would you have ranked him? It's not top 10, not top 15. Maybe he's in the top 20. But, yeah, I never really thought he was that good. I thought he was okay, but again, you could also say, well, they never surrounded him with talent, and you're right. And I could make a comparison to a guy that's still with the Giants, and that's Daniel Jones. We have never really seen Daniel Jones with elite level talent around him to see what he could do. We haven't seen that, and we probably won't see that. But I don't know. But I understand where Damien Harris is coming from. And, that's his teammate. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have guys that are going to come out and defend, their guys. And then there's going to be other teammates that aren't going to be like that. Because there's probably teammates out there that don't like Mac Jones. And they aren't going to come to his defense. But I do agree with Damien Harris. However, I mean, talking about making a Super Bowl run. I think actually at one point during 2021, the Patriots were the number 1 seed. And I was like, oh, their defense is playing really well. They're blowing out teams. Yeah, they blew out, they blew out the Titans that year. They blew out the Browns. I mean, I don't know if you really want to say that was that impressive. But, they were putting up 40 points against teams. Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence's, Jaguars were awful that year. But, yeah, they put up 50 points, I think, against them. So, yeah, they did put up a lot of points. But, yeah, I didn't see a Super Bowl run for the Patriots. Nick also says, could see Mac getting another chance one day like Darnold. Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe he goes to the 49ers, and, Brock Purdy, maybe something happens and Mac Jones comes in and, wins a couple games for him. No, I'm just saying. I don't want that to happen. I don't want Brock Purdy getting hurt. But, yeah, but maybe he goes to the 49ers like Sam Darnold. And then, he goes to a team on a 1-year deal and gets another shot. I think there's a possibility he gets another shot. But, we'll have to see. So, but that's my thoughts on it. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about what Damien Harris had to say. Is he right? I think he is right in some aspects. So we're going to take our third break of the show now. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll talk about Jalen Hurts, some of his comments about the offense, and kind of go through Kellen Moore and how some of his offenses have done in the past, because he was the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, then he was with the Chargers. So we'll get into all that when we come back for our third break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about the Eagles' offense. So I know I touched upon their defense recently, talked about Brandon Graham and what he had to say about the defense. Now we're going to talk about the Eagles' offense. So just kind of Kellen Moore's impact on the Eagles' offense. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts now and what he had to say about the offense. So let's get into it. So he said, this is what Jalen Hurts said recently. He said, you get to a point where you feel, I'm going to be more comfortable with this. I like this. That time comes when you can rep it later on. But right now, it's been a lot of new inventory in the majority of it. Probably 95% of it being new, and so it's just been that process, and it's been a fun process because you get to see what works for other people. I think the goal coming in was to learn Kellen's offense and to master it, and I think that's been a process. And by the end of it, I want it to be mine and have it in my own way. And he also said the X's and O's, the lines on the paper, they very well may be what they are supposed to be, but how I coach. Oh, now I think this is what Sirianni. Okay, so this is about Sirianni now. Maybe in what they're supposed to be, but how I coach and how I detail these routes, how I coach the quarterback, what I want his timing to be, where I want him looking, where I want his eyes. Are receivers reading routes or are they not reading routes? Are these alerts on this? Are there checks and adjustments built in on this, or is this something the quarterback has to do? That's what makes a system a system. So, I think the Eagles are going to be really good this year. Unfortunately, as a Giant fan, I think they're going to be back to how they were when they were 10-1, and the previous year when they went to the Super Bowl. Now, do I think the Eagles are going to go to the Super Bowl? Well, I think they got a great shot to. But that's way down the line. But yeah, I think they're going to be an improved team. They made a lot of moves this offseason. They did take Saquon Barkley from the Giants, which, Nick, if you're still here, for me, it did sting a little bit. But I think it probably affected some other Giant fans. I think Nick more so than me, just because I checked out on the Giants for a while because of just how things have gone recently. And yeah, so you got Saquon Barkley. They made a lot of moves on defense. You got two new coordinators in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. Yeah, I think they should be better. And, with the talent they already have there. You got Jalen Hurts. You got that offensive line. Without Jason Kelce, but it should still be good. You got A.J. Brown on a new deal. Devontae Smith on a new deal. Dallas Goedert, who's a good tight end. So, yeah, I think they'll feel the loss a little bit of Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox on both sides of the ball. But I think this team, with the talent they have, they should be good. And I wanted to look at Kellen Moore's profile and just kind of read off some numbers from when he was the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. I think it also has from when he was with the Chargers as well last year. But yeah, he was with the Chargers recently. But yeah, it does talk about how, he was the offensive coordinator, and Keenan Allen had, arguably his best year in the NFL. He ranked 6th in the NFL with 108 receptions for 1,243 receiving yards. And then Justin Herbert had the 6th best touchdown to interception ratio, 2.9, or 2-9, and 9th most passing touchdowns with 20, although you want to see that up. You don't want to. But touchdowns were low this year. Or last year. Last year was the year where a quarterback shouldn't have won MVP. Because we heard Dak and then Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, but it should have been either Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill that should have won MVP. But I get it; it's a quarterback award. But yeah, so those are some numbers with the Chargers. Now, with the Cowboys, he was with them from 2018 to 2022. Also did play quarterback a little bit. Was a southpaw, lefty. So we respect those because I am a fellow lefty as well. He orchestrated a unit that ranked 2nd in the NFL in total offense, 391 yards per game, scoring offense, 27.7 points per game, and touchdowns. 3rd in first downs per game, 22.5. 4th in passing offense, 264.4 yards per game, and 3rd down conversion rate, 44.1%. And the 7th rushing offense, 126.6 yards per game. And that was with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And now you got Saquon Barkley. So Philly's rushing attack should be good. And Saquon Barkley now being on a team that has an offensive line that can actually block for him. Yeah, that should scare some people. It's going to scare me when, the Eagles come to MetLife. But anyways, so yeah, he was with the Cowboys, and Dak ranked among the NFL's top passers down the stretch, 20 passing touchdowns from Week 10 until the end of the regular season. Because, actually, it brings up the injury that Dak suffered earlier in the year, because he did miss a couple games, and Cooper Rush had to start. Forgot about that. CeeDee Lamb caught 107 passes for 1,359 yards and 9 touchdowns. And Tony Pollard set career highs in rushing yards. In 2021, Moore's offense led the league in total yards per game, 407, and points per game, 31.2, while tying for second in passing yards per game, 282.4. So, he has coached some good offenses. And I think also you could look at it as, well, look at the talent. And the Eagles have a lot of talent on offense as well. And I think that, they should be better. The other thing too is, Jalen Hurts last year did kind of regress. He was turning the ball over more. We'll see how it is now in 2024. How many times am I going to say it? They got a lot of talent. They should be better. I think Kellen Moore is a decent offensive coordinator, right? Is that fair to say? Look at what he was able to do with the Cowboys. Their offense was pretty good. It still is good. But again, you could probably also nitpick and be like, wow, look at the teams that they did it against, because the Cowboys do beat up on bad teams, and then against the good teams they do struggle. But and then last year, I know the Chargers season kind of fell apart, but yeah, Keenan Allen had a good year, probably his best season, like I said, arguably. And if Justin Herbert doesn't get hurt, then he probably gets close to 30 touchdowns. So, we'll see how it goes. But, it's going to be like a collaborative effort with Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore. And I think for Sirianni, you better hope this team's good, because, there were some people calling for your job last year. So you better hope that this team bounces back, which they will. I think. I'm not going to be negative on the Eagles. Now, if they don't perform up to expectations, am I going to be distraught over it? No, I'm not. But it would definitely be surprising, because you got the offense, the defense should be better. I had this team winning 12, 13 games. So that's a division title right there. And you should be battling it out with, the top teams for the 1 seed. That's what I expect. So, but that's my thoughts on the Eagles. Let me know what you guys think. How do you see the Eagles offense doing in 2024? And how do you feel about the Kellen Moore hire? Do you think that was a good hire for them, what's the consensus? Compared to what they had last year, it was a good move. So, now we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the Raiders. We'll talk about their backfield. With now Josh Jacobs leaving in free agency, we'll talk about it and what the expectations are for the Raiders running game in 2024. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Raiders' backfield. And I'll just give you my thoughts on that. But before I get into that, speaking of running backs, we do have breaking news. All right, well, I mean, it broke like 18 minutes or about 20 minutes ago. So Christian McCaffrey will be the cover athlete for the next Madden game. So I wanted to bring that up. I don't know if I'm going to do a segment on that because, I mean, how much can I really talk about, the Madden cover? But that he will be the cover. And it's a really nice looking cover. And it's funny because, my friends are like, too bad because everybody's going to be playing the NCAA game, which I will be getting as well, one way or another. But I might have to buy a new console. So, but that's a separate issue. We do have a comment from John Edborg. I hope I pronounced that right. He said, I was frustrated when the NFL let Brady take pay cuts for rings, and now I am again watching Mahomes following the same model. The cap space was designed to have parity as much as possible. I mean, Brady took pay cuts, yeah. Look, I get it. Okay, I did pronounce it correctly. All right, appreciate it. Brady's allowed to take pay cuts. I get it. When you're constantly seeing the same person, the same player in the Super Bowl over and over and over again, yeah, you're gonna be upset about it because you want to see parity, like you said. But at the same time, can I just say this? Can you at least just sit back for a little bit and say, what you're seeing, you might never see again? Well, we did say that about the Patriots, and now we might be seeing that with Mahomes again. But can we just appreciate the greatness just a little bit? Just a little bit? And look, if you are just going to, be annoyed by it, I get it. I'm not going to change your mind. But just a little bit. Can we just appreciate the greatness just a little bit? Because it is incredible what Brady was able to do, and now we're seeing it with Mahomes. And Mahomes has been in the AFC Championship game every year since 2018, since he took over as a starter. Now, I get it. It's annoying seeing him there for some people. But appreciate the greatness a little bit. Just a little bit. All right, so let's get into the Raiders now. Speaking of a team that, Mahomes plays against, I guess. The Raiders' backfield. So Josh Jacobs left in free agency. He joined the Packers. And you got Zamir White, who I thought when he played in Josh Jacobs' absence, because Josh Jacobs did miss some games, played really well. And it was at the expense of me winning my fantasy football championship, because if I would have advanced, I would have won the whole thing. But anytime I see the name Zamir White, it does trigger me, I'm not going to lie, because I just think back to his 145-yard performance. And yes, that is it. Those are the exact numbers for his rushing yards that game, because I know these things, because for some reason I have a very weird memory. He had that performance against the Chiefs, and he got most of those yards the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, and I would have been okay, but whatever. Got to go out and win next year. That's how you got to look at it. But yeah, he did a nice job in Josh Jacobs' absence. Alexander Mattison they brought in, to at least have another running back, and Alexander Mattison had a rough year. And I thought, as other people did, that he was going to have a decent year. Because when Dalvin Cook would miss time, Alexander Mattison would do a nice job and when he had to fill in. But when he was the lead back, yeah, it did not go well. And this is what Zamir White had to say. Last year, my role was more like being a quiet guy, just like when they need me, I'm here. But now I have to grow back into that vocal leader, and I'm just showing them on the field every single day. I'm in this new role, and it's a whole new ground for me. So I'll just keep on grinding it out, working, learning from the backs in the room, and just progress. And then they also have Amir Abdullah, who is their other running back, who's like the change of pace back, the third down back as well. And this is what Alexander Mattison had to say. And this is about, talking about last year. it's as difficult as you make it. But with the right guys, with the right group, with the right coach, it makes that process a lot easier. So for us to be able to have a good group of backs, there's some young guys in the room, but we're all relative to one another in that sense, and we help one another. So so he's just talking about, the running back room. If I have a question, Amir's there, Zamir's there. If he has a question, I'm here. It's one of those things where we all help each other out in learning a new system, and we're all in this together. So far, it's working out, and so far, we're taking those right steps in the right direction. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But me personally, I think because Zamir White was already there, and, based off of the year that Alexander Madison's coming off of, I think Zamir White should be the lead back. But it's going to be a competition. Maybe I'm wrong, and Alexander Madison ends up playing really well, and he takes that number one job from Zamir White. So, when you look at the Raiders' offense, other than quarterback, now I think Gardner Minshew will be serviceable for them this year. I like the receivers. You got Devontae Adams, who's still one of the best receivers in the NFL. You got Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. And then the tight ends, Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. I think the weakness of the offense, I'm just talking about from pure, playmaker standpoint, not the offensive line. But, yeah, the running back is probably, the weakest group. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that it's going to be productive. We got to see, how is Zamir White going to do over the course of a full season? Like I said, did a nice job filling in for Josh Jacobs, but now, you got to take on a bigger role, and he acknowledged that. Like I said, you saw what he could do. Against the Chiefs on Christmas, he ran for over 140 yards. So, over the course of a full season, I don't think he's going to be dropping 140 yards every week, but let's see how he does over the course of a full season. Can he be productive week in and week out? Alexander Madison, last year was a rough year for him. And I think he didn't have a single rushing touchdown. I think he had a couple of receiving touchdowns, but yeah, didn't have a rushing touchdown. Change of scenery, maybe, you're not the lead guy. If Zamir White's the lead guy and you're, the number two guy, maybe that's what you have to be. Maybe you're better in that role as the number two guy. And then like I said, you have Amir Abdullah as that third running back. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what this Raiders offense is going to look like. Again, you have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell that are going to be battling it out. I know I brought up Minshew, but, we'll see. It's going to be a battle. And we got another comment from John. He says, no argument here. More than respect to KC and company, number one GM, number one head coach slash OC, number 3 DC, and number one quarterback, plus many other skilled players. My point is that group alone is hard to beat. Cap space makes it worse. Yeah, I understand that. Look, they're not going anywhere. It'll be interesting, once you see Andy Reid leave, but Andy Reid also signed an extension earlier this offseason. Travis Kelce's probably going to be the first one to go, I think. Mahomes is going to be around for a while, so we don't even need to talk about him. But yeah, I think between Kelce and Andy Reid, Kelce's going to be the one that's going to be out first. And then Andy Reid probably... Andy Reid's not going to coach forever. At some point it's going to end. And, we'll see. Is a team going to be able to knock them off this year? There's definitely some candidates out there that have a chance. But only time will tell. They are already talking about that three-peat. They talked about it right after they won last year's Super Bowl. So... it's going to be interesting. But, yeah, the Chiefs' offense during the regular season was not good. Now, you added more receivers. You drafted one. You brought in Marquise Brown. You brought back basically everybody on the defensive side of the ball, minus L'Jarius Sneed, who they had to trade. Chiefs are going to be good once again. So... It's going to be hard to knock him off, and very, very few people have done it. Between Joe Burrow and of course Tom Brady, who will be calling Chiefs games at some point during the year, I believe. Whenever Fox has a Chiefs game in the late window. So yeah, that is but that's pretty much it for the show for today. Let me know what you guys think about the Raiders backfield. Who do you think should be the number one back? I mean, I think it should be Zamir White. All right, last comment from John before we head off. He says, I believe Mahomes would take the league minimum for 8. He knows this is bigger than cash. Burrow and the Bengals are the only ones to beat KC in the playoffs the past few years, and both teams know it. Yeah, and that's actually the team that I was referencing as one of the teams that can knock him off. Now, I know I just said Brady and Burrow are the only guys to do it, but yeah, I think if the Bengals are healthy, I think that's the team that has the best chance, just because they've done it, and Burrow, he's got a winning record against Mahomes. So, but yeah, good comments from John and, of course, Nick as well. That's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows. Get the other host perspectives on things, NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, baseball, women's sports, wrestling, fantasy sports. Cover pretty much everything. So, also golf as well. Didn't mean to disrespect golf, but yeah, just forgot to throw them in there. Throw golf in there as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for tuning in. That is all the time that we have for today. Make sure to tune in tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.